June 28, 1942, 11:47 p.m. 3,000 feet above a German supply depot near Morozovsk, southern Russia. The Polikarpov Po-2 biplane shudders as Senior Lieutenant Nadezhda Popova eases back the throttle. Behind her, in the rear cockpit, navigator Katya Ryabova grips the edge of her seat, her gloved fingers white with tension despite having flown this route 43 times before. The temperature has dropped to -15 Celsius. Ice crystals form on Popova's goggles. She blinks them away. 2 kilometers, Ryabova whispers through the speaking tube, though there's no need to whisper. Not yet. Below them, the German depot glows with floodlights. Popova counts 6 fuel trucks, clustered near what appears to be an ammunition storage facility. She can see soldiers moving between them, small as ants. They haven't heard the Po-2 yet. The 5-cylinder radial engine, normally loud enough to wake the dead, is still running. Still audible. 1 kilometer. Popova's hand moves to the ignition switch. This is the moment that separates the Night Witches from every other bomber crew in the Soviet Air Force, the moment that has turned them into ghosts. She kills the engine. The propeller windmills for 3 seconds, then stops. The sudden silence is so complete that Popova can hear Ryabova breathing. She can hear the wind sliding over the fabric wings. She can hear her own heartbeat hammering against her ribs. The Po-2 becomes a glider, a ghost. A whisper of wood and canvas falling through the black Russian night at 94 miles per hour. On the ground, Obergefreiter Klaus Hartmann is lighting a cigarette when his sergeant hisses at him to put it out. Hartmann sighs, grinds the cigarette under his boot, and returns to his post beside the 20mm flak gun. He's 19 years old. He's been on the Eastern Front for 7 months. He's learned to sleep through artillery fire and wake at the sound of Soviet tanks, but he hasn't learned to detect the Night Witches. None of them have. The first sign is the sound, not an engine. Something else. A soft rushing noise like wind through wheat, or fabric ripping, or as Hartmann will write in his diary 3 days later, like a broom sweeping across the sky. His sergeant hears it too. What is? The Po-2 materializes from the darkness at 500 feet. Ryabova releases the bombs. 2 50-kilogram high-explosive charges tumble through the air. Popova doesn't wait to see them hit. Her hand is already on the ignition, fingers moving with practiced precision. The engine coughs, catches, roars back to life. The biplane banks hard left just as the first bomb detonates. The fuel truck erupts in a pillar of orange flame. The shockwave knocks Hartmann off his feet. The second bomb hits the ammunition storage. The explosion is so bright that Popova has to shield her eyes even at 300 feet. Shrapnel screams upward, punching holes through the Po-2's lower wing. One fragment tears through the fabric beside Ryabova's leg, missing her by inches. Hartmann scrambles to the flak gun, swings the barrel toward the sound of the retreating engine. He fires. 20 rounds streak into the night sky, tracer rounds drawing red lines through the smoke. Every shot misses. The Po-2 is already gone, swallowed by darkness, leaving only the sound of its engine fading into the distance. And in that moment, as Hartmann stands among the burning wreckage of 6 fuel trucks and 200,000 rounds of ammunition, as he watches his comrades drag wounded soldiers from the flames, he understands why his battalion commander warned them. The Russians have sent witches, Nachthexen, night witches. Popova levels the aircraft at 2,000 feet and turns northwest. Back to the airfield. Back to refuel, rearm, and do this 7 more times before sunrise. Next target? She asks through the speaking tube. Ryabova checks her map by flashlight. Railroad junction. 15 kilometers. They'll be waiting this time. They're always waiting, Popova says. She touches the photograph taped to her instrument panel. Her sister. Killed in a German bombing raid 8 months ago. Let them wait. The Po-2 disappears into the night. Behind them, the depot burns. In 32 minutes, they will return to their base. In 47 minutes, they will take off again. They will fly 8 missions tonight. Tomorrow night, 9. This is June 28, 1942. The 588th Night Bomber Regiment has been operational for 59 days. They have flown 1,094 combat sorties. They have destroyed 73 German positions. They will fly 22,906 more before this war ends. 32 of them will never come home. October 8, 1941. Engels Military Aviation School, 560 miles southeast of Moscow. Marina Raskova stands before 400 women in a freezing hangar and sees what the Soviet Air Force cannot. An army. She is 31 years old. Navigator. Hero of the Soviet Union. The first woman to receive the Gold Star. She flew across Siberia in 1938 and became a legend. Now 3 months into Operation Barbarossa. With German tanks 50 miles from Moscow and Soviet casualties exceeding 2 million, she has been given permission to do something unprecedented. She is going to create 3 all-female aviation regiments. The women before her range from 17 to 26 years old. University students, factory workers, teachers, mechanics, farm girls who learn to fly in Komsomol youth clubs. They arrived at Engels yesterday, carrying everything they own in canvas bags, wearing civilian clothes because the military has no uniforms small enough to fit them. "You will fly at night," Raskova says. Her voice carries across the silent hangar. "You will fly lower than any bomber in the Soviet Air Force. You will fly in aircraft that were never designed for combat. And you will fly more missions in one night than most male crews fly in a week." In the front row, 19-year-old Nadezhda Popova shifts her weight from foot to foot. Her boots are too large. They belonged to her brother before he died at Smolensk. She listens to Raskova and thinks, yes, this is what I came for. Beside her stands Yevdokia Bershanskaya, 29, a flight instructor with 6 years of experience. She will become their commander. She doesn't know this yet. Right now she's studying the women around her and calculating, if we lose 10%, that's 40 dead. 20%, 80 dead. She doesn't calculate 32. No one ever calculates the exact number. You will be given the Polikarpov PO2, Raskova continues. She gestures to the aircraft behind her. 2 biplanes sit on the hangar floor, fabric wings gleaming dully in the overhead lights. This is a training aircraft. Maximum speed 152 kilometers per hour. Cruising altitude 3,000 meters. Bomb capacity 350 kilograms. Open cockpit. No radio, no guns, no armor, no parachutes. A murmur runs through the assembled women. Katya Ryabova, 18, navigator trainee from Leningrad, raises her hand. "Comrade Major, why no parachutes?" "You'll be flying too low for them to deploy," Raskova says simply. "If you're hit, you'll hit the ground before the canopy opens. The parachute is dead weight. We need that weight for bombs." The murmur becomes uncomfortable silence, but no one leaves. That night, in the barracks, the women try on their new uniforms. Or rather, they try on men's uniforms. Size 42 boots for size 36 feet. Flight suits that hang like tents. One woman, Polina Gelman, 17 years old, has to cut 6 inches off her pant legs and stuff newspaper in her boots. She will fly 860 combat missions in those boots. The newspaper will stay in them for 3 years. "They think we'll quit," says Irina Sabrova, 23, a former cartography student. She's cutting her hair short with fabric scissors. Around her, other women are doing the same. Hair that gets caught in goggles can kill you. They think we're playing at war. "Let them think it," says Popova. She's writing a letter to her mother. She doesn't mention that she's been assigned to bombers. She writes about the food, the weather, the other girls. She doesn't mention that in 7 months, she'll fly her first combat mission. She doesn't mention that she'll fly 851 more after that. The training is brutal. They wake at 0500, flight theory until 0900, navigation. Training until 1300, aircraft, maintenance until 1800 night. Flight training until 0200. 4 hours of sleep. Repeat. The male instructors are skeptical at best, hostile at worst. Major Anatoly Serov tells Bershanskaya to her face, "Women cannot handle combat stress. You'll panic under fire. You'll get your navigators killed." She says nothing. She will prove him wrong 23,000 times. The Po-2 is older than most of the women flying it. Designed in 1928 as a crop duster and training aircraft, it has a maximum range of 400 kilometers and a service ceiling of 3,000 meters. Its 5-cylinder engine produces 125 horsepower. A modern Volkswagen produces more. It is made almost entirely of plywood and fabric stretched over a wooden frame. You can punch through the fuselage with your fist. Incendiary rounds turn it into a flying torch. One woman will later describe it as flying a bonfire through enemy flak, but it has advantages. It's too slow for German fighters to engage effectively. Its wooden construction makes it nearly invisible to radar. It can take off from any flat field and land in the dark without lights. and it's so cheap that the Soviets have built over 40,000 of them. In December 1941, the 588th Night Bomber Regiment receives its aircraft. 40 Po-2 biplanes, painted dark green, red stars on their wings. The women name them Little Swallow. Revenge. For Stalin. For Moscow, Popova names hers for Nina, her sister. Dead at 23 in an air raid. On May 27, 1942, the regiment deploys to the Caucasus front. 40 aircraft. 400 women. Not one of them has flown a combat mission. By June 1st, they will have flown 289. By the end of 1942, they will have flown 348. Male bomber crews call them Komsomol girls playing war. The infantry calls them sisters in the sky. The German soldiers who survive their attacks will call them something else entirely, but that name hasn't been earned yet. Not in May, not in the training hangar where they learned to navigate by starlight, not in the briefing rooms where they studied maps of enemy positions. The name will be earned at night, in the darkness above German lines, in the silence between engine and bomb, in the moment when Klaus Hartmann and 10,000 soldiers like him look up and hear the sound of death sweeping toward them on fabric wings, the night. Witches are coming, they just don't know it. Yet July 15th, 1942, 02:30 hours. Forward airfield, 12 kilometers behind Soviet lines. Nadezhda Popova climbs into the cockpit for the 6th time tonight. Her hands are shaking, not from fear, from cold. The temperature is -18 Celsius. She's been flying for 7 hours. Her goggles are cracked. Her leather jacket is soaked with hydraulic fluid from a ruptured line. There's a hole in the lower left wing where a 7.92-meter round passed through, missing the main spar by 4 centimeters. She has 2 more missions before dawn. Ready? Asks the mechanic. She's 17. Her name is Anya. She's been awake for 23 hours, patching fabric, refueling aircraft, loading bombs. Her hands are black with engine grease. Ready, Popova says. Anya hand cranks the propeller. The engine catches, sputters, roars. Popova doesn't wait for it to warm up. There's no time. She releases the brake and the Po-2 bounces across the grass field, lifts into the night at 45 miles per hour, and disappears. 60 seconds later, another Po-2 follows. Then another. Then another. This is how the night witches fight. Not in formations. Not in daylight. Not with the protection of fighter escorts or heavy armor. They fight alone in darkness, in an aircraft that weighs less than a modern sedan and carries the aerodynamic profile of a brick. The Polikarpov PO-2 specifications read like a death sentence. Length, 8.17 meters. Wingspan, 11.4 meters. Empty weight, 635 kilograms. Maximum takeoff weight, 1,020 kilograms. That leaves 385 kilograms for crew, fuel, and bombs. Popova weighs 52 kilograms. Ryabova weighs 48. That leaves 285 kilograms. Fuel, 150 kilograms. Bombs, 135 kilograms maximum, usually 2 50-kilogram charges. The cockpits are open. No canopy, no windscreen. At 150 kilometers per hour, the wind feels like knives. At -40 Celsius, it causes frostbite in 7 minutes. The women wrap their faces in scarves, wear 3 layers of wool under their flight suits, and still shiver uncontrollably. There is no intercom system. Pilot and navigator communicate through a rubber speaking tube, shouting to be heard over the wind and engine. There is no radio. Radio silence is mandatory. German direction-finding stations can triangulate a transmission in under 2 minutes. There are no guns. The PO-2 cannot carry defensive armament and bombs simultaneously. There are no bomb sites. Ryabova uses a stopwatch and calculations scratched on paper with a pencil. She releases the bombs when her mathematics say the aircraft is over the target. She is correct 73% of the time. The tactic that defines them, the tactic that earns them their name, is discovered by accident. On June 9, 1942, during the regiment's 13th combat night, pilot Serafima Amosova's engine fails at 2,000 feet directly above a German encampment. She has 2 choices, crash immediately or glide to a forced landing behind enemy lines. She chooses neither. She glides toward the German position, releases her bombs in silence, restarts the engine at 300 feet, and escapes in the confusion of the explosion. When she lands, Bershanskaya asks her to repeat the maneuver deliberately. Amosova does. It works. Within a week, every crew in the regiment is doing it. The engine cut approach becomes doctrine. Here is how it works. At 3,000 feet, the pilot identifies the target. At 1,500 feet, she throttles back to minimum power. At 1,000 feet, she kills the engine completely. The propeller stops. The aircraft becomes a glider, descending at a ratio of 8:1. For every 8 meters forward, it drops 1 meter. The only sound is wind passing over fabric wings. The Germans call this sound the witch's broom. At 500 feet, the navigator releases the bombs. At 300 feet, the pilot restarts the engine. The 5-cylinder radial explodes back to life. The aircraft pulls up violently, often stalling, sometimes spinning, always escaping before the bombs detonate. If the engine fails to restart, both women die. It fails to restart in 32 aircraft. The German response is immediate and overwhelming. Flak batteries are repositioned specifically to engage low-altitude night bombers. Searchlight crews are tripled. Night fighter patrols are increased. The Luftwaffe assigns Messerschmitt Bf-109 fighters to hunt the PO-2s. None of it works. The PO-2's maximum speed is 152 kilometers per hour. The Bf-109's stall speed is 160 kilometers per hour. German fighters have to slow down to engage, which makes them vulnerable to stalling and crashing. Several do. Luftwaffe pilots begin refusing the missions. They consider it beneath them to chase wood and fabric toys. Some consider it a professional insult. The flak guns fire 15,000 rounds per night. Hit rate 1.8%. The Po-2 is too small, too slow, too low. Radar cannot track it. Its wooden frame produces almost no return signature. Searchlights catch it occasionally, but the aircraft is so maneuverable that pilots can jink out of the beam in seconds. On August 3, 1942, Feldwebel Johann Steinhoff shoots down his first Night Witch. His Bf-109 stalls during the engagement. He barely recovers. He is awarded the Iron Cross First Class. The medal comes with a citation for exceptional bravery and action against the enemy. Shooting down one, Po-2 is considered equivalent to destroying a 4-engine heavy bomber. The Night Witches fly an average of 8 missions per night. Some nights 15. Each mission lasts 40 minutes. 15 minutes to target, 5 minutes over target, 20 minutes return. Land, refuel, rearm, repeat. The aircraft never cools. The engine oil stays warm. The women never rest. Yevdokia Nosal flies 18 missions in one night. 18 takeoffs, 18 bombing runs, 18 landings in total darkness on an unlighted grass field. She is 22 years old. She does this 3 times per week for 3 years. By December 1942, the 588th Night Bomber Regiment has flown 6,140 combat sorties. They have destroyed 47 fuel depots, 12 ammunition dumps, 23 artillery positions, and damaged or destroyed 724 vehicles. They have killed approximately 1,850 German soldiers. They have lost 8 aircraft, 16 women. The statistics are kept in Bershanskaya's log. She updates them every morning at 600. She records every mission, every bomb dropped, every aircraft damaged, every woman killed. The numbers grow. The pages fill. The war continues. In Berlin, Wehrmacht intelligence. Analysts study reports from the Eastern Front. They note the appearance of a Soviet night bomber unit operating with unprecedented frequency and recklessness. They note that German soldiers are showing signs of sleep deprivation and psychological stress in sectors where this unit operates. They note that conventional air defense measures are largely ineffective. They do not note that the unit is composed entirely of women. German intelligence doesn't believe this until 1944, when they capture and interrogate navigator Yevgenia Rudneva after she is shot down. She tells them everything. They don't believe her. They think she's covering for male crews. She isn't. At 0447 hours on July 15, 1942, Nadezhda Popova lands for the 8th time. She's been in the air for 9 hours and 17 minutes. She's dropped 16 bombs. She's been shot at 214 times that she can count. There's a new hole in the upper wing, and the rudder cable is frayed, and the engine is making a grinding noise that shouldn't be there. Anya, the mechanic, is waiting. "One more?" she asks. Popova looks at the eastern horizon. The sky is turning gray. Dawn in 40 minutes. Technically, her night is over. "One more," she says. She will fly 851 missions before this war ends. This is number 47. She has 804 to go. August 1st, 1943, 0147 hours. Katya Ryabova is dying. Her Po-2 is on fire. The left wing is gone, torn away by 20mm cannon fire from a German night fighter that appeared from nowhere and raked them with incendiary rounds before vanishing back into darkness. Pilot Serafima Amosova is dead, slumped forward in the front cockpit, half her skull missing. The aircraft is spinning, dropping through 800 feet, then 600, then 400. Ryabova has approximately 9 seconds to live. She doesn't think about those 9 seconds. She thinks about the speaking tube conversation she had with Amosova 3 hours ago. They were discussing Amosova's wedding, planned for October, to a tank commander she met during a supply run. Ryabova was supposed to be the maid of honor. They were arguing about flowers. Roses or lilies? The Po-2 hits the ground at 140 kilometers per hour. Ryabova wakes up 18 hours later in a forest, 12 kilometers behind German lines. Her left leg is broken in 2 places. 3 ribs are cracked. Her left shoulder is dislocated. The aircraft is scattered across 50 meters of Russian pine trees. There is no sign of Amosova's body. The fire consumed everything. Ryabova has no map, no compass, no food, no water. She has a Tokarev pistol with 7 rounds. She can barely walk. German patrols are everywhere. She starts moving west, toward Soviet lines. 18 kilometers. She crawls for the first 3. On the second day, she finds a stream and drinks until she vomits. On the third day, she hears German voices and hides in a drainage culvert for 11 hours, while a motorized column passes 20 meters away. On the 4th day, she crosses back into Soviet territory and collapses in front of a forward reconnaissance unit. 6 weeks later, after surgery, after physical therapy, after every doctor tells her she'll never fly again, she reports back to the 508th Night Bomber Regiment. "I can still navigate," she tells Bershanskaya. She flies 693 more missions. This is not unusual. This is Tuesday for the Night Witches. In his diary, Unteroffizier Franz Huber writes, July 19th, 1943. Impossible to sleep. They come every night now. 7 attacks last night, 12 the night before. You lie in your foxhole and wait for the sound. That terrible sweeping sound like wind through a cemetery. Then silence. Then the explosion. Friedrich is dead, burned. Kurt is dead. Shrapnel through the chest. I am so tired. I fear the night more than I fear the day. At least in daylight you can see death coming. Huber survives the war. He never flies in an aircraft again. He cannot tolerate the sound of wind. The Soviets do not make it easy to honor the night witches. The propaganda machine wants heroic stories, but it wants them sanitized. It wants brave women defending the motherland, not 19-year-old girls burned alive in wooden biplanes. It wants clean victories, not body counts. It wants heroes without trauma. The night witches give them trauma. Irina Sabrova flies. 1,008 missions and loses. Both legs in a crash in January 1944. She's fitted with prosthetics and returns to flying in March. She tells a reporter, "My legs are in a German field. The rest of me is still fighting. The interview is censored." Too graphic. Raisa Aronova flies 960 missions with her dead sister's photograph taped to the instrument panel. She kisses it before every takeoff. When asked why, she says, "I'm teaching her to fly." Aronova's sister was 11 when she died in a German bombing raid. The photograph shows her holding a doll. This story is also censored. Too dark. Polina Gelman is shot down 4 times. She walks out of enemy territory 3 times. The 4th time she's captured. The Germans don't believe she's a pilot. They think she's a partisan. They interrogate her for 6 days before Soviet forces overrun the position. She weighs 38 kilograms when she's liberated. She returns to flying 5 weeks later. She never discusses what happened during those 6 days. Not to reporters, not to her family, not to anyone. She flies 860 missions total. She receives the Hero of the Soviet Union Medal in 1945. In the photograph of the ceremony, her hands are shaking so badly that Stalin has to steady them to pin the gold star to her uniform. The mathematics of survival are brutal. The 588th Night Bomber Regiment flies 23,672 combat missions between May 1942 and May 1945. 32 women are killed in action. This represents a loss rate of 0.135% per mission. It sounds acceptable until you calculate individual risk. If a pilot flies 500 missions, and many fly more, her statistical probability of death is approximately 50%. If she flies 800 missions, it rises to 70%. If she flies 1,000 missions, she's beating impossible odds. Irina Sibrova beats them. Nadezhda Popova beats them. 21 others beat them. Yevgenia Rudneva does not. She's 24 years old, a navigator, an astronomer before the war, planning to study stellar evolution after victory. On April 9, 1944, she's flying her 645th mission over Kerch when her aircraft takes a direct hit from an 80 mm flak shell. The Po-2 disintegrates. There is no body to recover. There is barely any debris. Her last logbook entry, written 7 hours before takeoff. Clear skies tonight. Good hunting. May 2nd, 1945. Berlin. The war in Europe has 4 days left. Soviet forces are fighting block by block through the German capital. The Night Witches are flying their final missions, bombing pockets of German resistance, dropping supplies to advancing infantry. Nadezhda Popova takes off at 2300 hours. This is mission number 852. She's 23 years old and looks 40. Her hair is gray at the temples. She has permanent frostbite scars on both cheeks. She's been shot down 3 times, wounded twice, and decorated so many times that her uniform can barely support the weight of the medals. She flies over Berlin and thinks, this is where it ends. This is where Nina is avenged. Below her, Klaus Hartmann is still alive. He's 37 kilometers southwest of Berlin, retreating with the remnants of his battalion. He hears the sound of Po-2 engines in the distance and doesn't bother taking cover anymore. What's the point? They've been coming every night for 3 years. They'll keep coming until Germany surrenders, or until every German soldier is dead. He wonders if they're really witches. He started to believe it. How else do you explain it? How else do you explain wooden biplanes that can't be shot down? Women who fly 15 missions per night, an enemy that turns darkness itself into a weapon. On May 8, 1945, Germany surrenders. The war is over. The Night Witches have flown 23,672 combat sorties. They have dropped 3,000 tons of bombs. They have destroyed or damaged 17 river crossings, 9 railway junctions, 2 railway stations, 26 warehouses, 12 fuel depots, 176 armored vehicles, 86 firing points, and approximately 900 enemy personnel clusters. They have killed an estimated 28,000 German soldiers through direct action and the cascading effects of destroyed supply lines. 32 women of the 588th Night Bomber Regiment died in combat. 23 received the Hero of the Soviet Union Medal, the highest military honor in the USSR. It is the largest number of female recipients of this award from any single unit in Soviet military history. After the war, Nadezhda Popova becomes a pilot instructor. She teaches young men and women to fly. She never mentions the Po-2 missions unless asked directly. When asked, she says only, "We did what was necessary. We had no choice. Our families were dying." She lives to 91 years old. She dies in her sleep in 2013. Her obituary in the New York Times is 847 words long. It mentions that she flew 852 combat missions. It mentions the Night Witches. It mentions the Iron Cross bounty. It does not mention Katya Ryabova, crawling through 18 kilometers of enemy territory with a shattered leg. It does not mention Raisa Aronova, kissing her dead sister's photograph before every takeoff. It does not mention the sound of fabric wings sweeping through darkness. It does not mention the 32 women who never came home. But Klaus Hartmann remembers. He's 91 when Popova dies. He's living in Hamburg, in a small apartment overlooking the Elbe. He reads her obituary online. He sits in his chair and stares out the window at the night sky and thinks about June 28, 1942. The sound of the broom. The silence. The explosion. He thinks she was there. That night. I know it. He's probably right. And somewhere in the darkness above Hamburg, in the space between memory and history, 32 wooden biplanes are still flying. Still hunting. Still proving why German soldiers learned to fear the night. The Night Witches earned their name 23,672 times. They never gave it back.